If you have ever seen a listing on Amazon with a video and additional content, and you've thought to yourself, hold on, why can't I add a video and additional images to my own listing? And how come I don't have my very own store on Amazon? Well, in this video, we're going to be talking about step number 1 to doing what is known as brand registration on Amazon. And that is registering and applying and getting a trademark for your very own brand. How to do that? What is the difference between a trademark and a copyright? Can you apply for a trademark even as an individual, or would you need to have a company? All of those things we're going to be dissecting and talking about in depth in this video. Let's get started. If this is your first time watching a video on this channel, hi, my name is Crystal and I'm the founder of Amazon Sellers Society. If you are an entrepreneur or if you have an established brand and you need help and support setting up your very own store on Amazon right here in the Middle East, please do reach out to our team on www.assmiddleeast.org and we can help support you and guide you further. Now, ever since taking this YouTube channel seriously, we've been able to grow it to over 30,000 subscribers with more than 1 million views. So if you find the knowledge and information interesting, we do put out information every single week, almost 3 videos in both English and Arabic. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel and leave us a thumbs up to this video as well as a comment down below because it supports the channel as well as the videos. Now let's get started with the idea of brand registry. What is it exactly? And what documentation or what do you need in order to apply for brand registry on Amazon? There are so many benefits and additional things that Amazon provides you and give you once you register your brand on Amazon. But for the time being, let's now just focus on the additional things that can help you, the additional things that Amazon provides you so that you can better sell your product. So I'm on the listing of the Anchor Soundcore range. And as you can see here, you can see that they actually have a store, which we're going to visit in a minute. But let's look at the listing images. As you can see, the last one has been replaced by a video. And surveys show that videos actually increase sales and conversion rates by 30% by just simply having a visual video on your listing. Additionally, Amazon provides you with EBC, enhanced brand content. Look at that. It looks like an actual website inside of your listing where you can add additional features, more information, really cool looking images, and focus on different elements and aspects of your product and even your whole brand. So you can showcase so many other listings under your own brand and thereby not losing the customer. Maybe the customer clicked on a product that they didn't really like and now they found something else in your range, which is quite interesting. Now, also additionally, of course, part of the EBC is having your own store. Let's click and we go directly to the storefront that now looks like it actually looks like a website that is hosted on Amazon. So also customers can check out your full range of products. You obviously don't have to have a lot of products, but you still can have an okay range of products whereby you can showcase all of them and they can decide, they can really understand your branding and your brand messaging. So there are a lot of benefits to from a marketing and sales perspective, but let's look at the documentation that you need in order to register a brand on Amazon. So quite simply, to enroll a brand and register it on Amazon, these are the things that you are required to have. You are required to have the registration number of your trademark, and yes, it can be an international trademark, meaning it can be a US trademark, for example, while you're still selling on Amazon in the UAE. You need images that clearly show the branding on your product and or your packaging. And if you are a vendor, not an actual third-party seller, then you need to provide your vendor code. A sample list of ASINs that show your brand's products on Amazon. So you already have to have listings for your products. So you need to hand out a full list of those ASINs, as well as information on the countries where you distribute your products, if you sell your products anywhere else other than the actual marketplace where you are registering in or enrolling in, meaning the UAE. Quite simple and easy, but mostly it's about the trademark. As always, whenever we have a really complicated subject and something that it is a little bit complex, I like to introduce to you experts in their own field so we can get more in-depth knowledge from their expertise. So let's dive into an interview that I did with Devin Miller, who is the founder as well as the CEO of Miller IP Law, a law firm that is specialized in trademarking as well as patents. Let's see what he has to say about trademarking. So Devin, thank you so much for your time. This is a very, very complicated subject for a lot of people. By this, I mean trademarks versus copywriting and all of that. And I know that you are specialized with helping startups and small businesses, as well as e-commerce sellers. But before we get started and before I start bombarding you with all my questions, tell us, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit of a background, and a little bit about your firm, Miller IP Law.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, so I'm Devin Miller. So I have been a intellectual property attorney for about 10 years now. So I did work for top 100 firms here in the US here for about 6.5 years of my career. And then I decided I wanted to transition. So at that time I was working for a lot of or working as clients for a lot of big name companies, including Amazon, including Intel, including Red Hat, and doing others. And I basically got to the spot where I'm saying, hey, the clients I really love and enjoy working with are more on the startup and the small business side. So started Miller IP Law, offering a lot of, or the same level of service I'd offer to the big businesses, but for the startups and the small business to help them to compete and have that same quality. So with that, started Miller IP Law about 3.5 years ago. And then really the firm kind of focuses on intellectual property and business related services. So intellectual property includes patents, includes trademarks, includes copyrights. We also do like business formations. So in the US, LLCs or S Corps or C Corps, non-disclosure agreements or NDAs, social media takedown, website takedown, and some of those related services. So that's kind of a lot of where we focus on is really kind of the mantras is helping startups and small businesses protecting and growing their business. And that's really kind of the services that we tend to focus on. So that's where I've been at, kind of what I've been doing and kind of where the firm is at and the focus of it.
Perfect. So as you are quite familiar, a lot of people, potentially a lot of e-commerce Amazon sellers figure out what a trademark is when they start selling on Amazon and when they realize, hold on, there's something called Brand Registry, which allows me to, have a really cool looking listing with videos and additional A+ and EBC enhanced brand content and all of that. That's how people discover trademarking. So before we talk about that, just can we, because I know there's a big confusion between the difference between a trademark and a copyright. Let's talk about the differences.
Depending on the product your clients or people are selling, your listeners are selling, is patents as well, just in the sense if they created something new or innovative or different, patent hits on that. So I'll just kind of hit on a really quick run through and kind of on each one of those, and we can talk just a little bit about how it relates to Amazon and kind of what the general paths are. So perfect. As a quick run through, intellectual property, it's an umbrella term. Basically, it incorporates multiple things, which are patents, trademarks, copyrights. So patents are going to go towards an invention, basically something that you invented that does something, that has a utility, has a functionality, accomplishes something. That's going to fall under patent. So if you create the world's next best iPhone and it's a great widget and a great product and nobody else has ever thought of how to do it, that'd be under a patent. The trademark is going to be more anything that's to do with your branding. So if you're to think really branding, trademark. So name of a company, name of a product, a logo, a catchphrase, any of those type of things that's going to be associated with your brand is going to fall under trademarks. The last one is going to be copyrights, and copyrights are really going to be more on anything that's on the creative side. So it can be a photo, it can be a picture, a sculpture, a painting, a book, a blog, a video. Any of those that are kind of take the creative nature of it are going to be under copyright. So when you're looking at kind of one, what is it that you're creating, or what is it that the value of your business is, that's one thing to look at. And then if you get into Amazon specific, is what are they, somebody is mimicking or copying you, or otherwise or coming after, or copycatting your business.
Yeah.
What is that? And that really falls under, if it's, hey, are they copying your image and your copyright and your text and how you describe your product? That's going to be under copyrights. If they're copying the name of your business or the name of your product or something very similar that's confusing, it's going to be under trademarks. If you created a great product that nobody else has ever come up with before, and you start selling it on Amazon, and then somebody reverse engineers it and starts selling it themselves, that's going to fall under patents. And so that's kind of where you want to delineate. And Amazon does give paths for how to enforce those for each of them, but they are different paths, and you have to know which path you're going after.
Yeah. 100%, perfectly clear. So let's talk a little bit about trademarks, because that's the main hurdle for anyone who wants to apply for Amazon Brand Registry. So for a trademark, let's assume everyone, because most people watching the channel are potentially selling on Amazon in the Middle East and maybe residing in the Middle East. Just I'm prefacing this because I know it doesn't really matter anymore. It's such a global business selling on Amazon. It doesn't really matter where you live and where you sell. So let's just assume this is the case. What are the options? Can somebody register their trademark in the UAE as well as in Europe as well as in the US, or should they be registering a trademark where they live or where they sell? I'm asking you these questions because I know that's what people, that's the confusing, this is the confusing information that people want. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So as far as it doesn't matter where you live. Now, there's a couple caveats to that, and we'll get to that, but for real intents purposes, you don't register the trademark based on where you live, because I could go, as an example, and live in the Antarctica, but I could be selling in the US. It matters where you're selling. In other words, if you're selling products in the US, then you can get a US trademark. If you're selling something in the EU and European Union, you can get a trademark there, or UAE, or wherever you're at, is wherever you're selling it. And the reason is, and I'll caveat why I'm a licensed US attorney, so this is based on US law, but it's pretty applicable across the world, and they have basically the same concept. Is the general idea is what the trademark is a source identification of whatever what you're buying. In other words, when you get a trademark, it's saying this is a brand that that when you're buying it, this product, it's this brand, this company, and this brand that's selling it. So where your product or your service that you're buying is coming from. So when I buy from Nike, I know that it's coming from Nike. It's not some other company that's knocking it off. I know that I'm buying a good product that has good quality. They have good customer service, or they have good whatever. They have a good reputation. That's who I'm buying it from. So when you're looking to get a trademark, it's really in the areas that you're selling it. And if you're to take US as an example, let's say you were in the UAE, but you do a ton of business in the US. You do a lot of, whether it's, let's say, drop shipping, or whether it's, hey, you're doing your own products, or you're importing in, goods from your local area into the US, or whatever that might be. Then as long as you're selling in the US, you can get a US trademark. The one thing you do have to be a bit cognizant of, and it's more recent within the last couple of years, it's changed with the US Trademark Office, is they have now started requiring that you have, if you're foreign, if located, in other words, you're not a US citizen or US or citizen or located in the US, you have to have a attorney that represents you in the US, because they're basically having a difficult time. People outside the US were filing in there. There wasn't a way to contact them. There wasn't a way to get in communication with them. And so they were basically saying you have to have a US located representative for your trademark application. Now, the nice thing is now touching on Amazon Brand Registry is one of the more recent changes, at least in the US, and they do have a bit of different rules for every country based on those countries' laws. But in the US, at least, They recently changed it. Used to be in the US that you had to have an actually registered trademark before you could start to go through brand registry. In other words, you had to file the trademark, go through the full process, get a registered trademark, and then you can get on brand registry. They have recently, within I think the last year and a half, have changed it. So once you have a trademark application pending with the trademark office here in the US, you can actually go and start to enforce it, or otherwise go to brand registry. So that one has been at least one benefit here in the US is now you can get on the registry earlier and you can get enforcing earlier.
Perfect. Very clear. Makes a lot of sense. If you are selling a product in the US, then you want to have it trademarked where you are selling it. But a lot of sellers, particularly in the UAE, because as you are aware, registering trademarks here isn't as easy. It is a quite an arduous process, as well as it is in comparison with other countries, such as the US, for example. It's much more expensive. It's a bigger investment for somebody that's just simply starting out, and they're not really 100% sure if they want to continue past the year. So a lot of people are opting, even though they are selling their products in the UAE, for example, they're opting to register a trademark in the UK or in the US and use it on Amazon in the UAE, or the other way around, let's assume. What are the pros and cons of, like, we're not in any, every single seller has their own situation, of course, but what are the positives and negatives of doing that?
Yeah, and you hit on a couple that I think are worthwhile. One is the expense. If you go to the US, is relatively, and I get it's still an investment. It's not, they don't give them away, but it's relatively less expensive. It's a fairly well-defined process, and it's one where you have a reasonably repeatable path. Now, doesn't mean you can just get a trademark on things that are already out there, but at least you kind of have the system well-defined. It's also one where if you're on Amazon, you're doing Amazon brand registry, it's fairly well defined. Amazon is located headquarters in the US. They are very familiar with US law. It's still 100%. Where the bulk of their marketplace is, and where a lot of the selling goes on. And so they are set up to more easily deal with brand registry problems if it's in the US. So that's one. And UK is a bit the same way. UK, the only difference is with Brexit, it did make it a bit more of a uncertain as to how that's all going to be dealt with. Patents are dealt with one way, trademarks are dealt with a different way, whether it's part of the EU or not part of the EU, and it makes it a bit more complicated, but it's a reasonable alternative. Now, that would be if you're Amazon brand registry specific. Now, on the other hand, the other drawback, the reason you would want to consider not doing it in the US or the UK is if Amazon brand registry is only a portion of your business. So let's say, as an example, you have 30% is on Amazon, 60% is tourists or a local community or in your own country, and then 10% is on your own e-commerce platform. Well, if the bulk of your sales and the bulk of your brand is really not on Amazon, and it is in your local country, and that's where most of your sales are, even though it's more expensive than that, you're probably going to want to get a trademark in the place where you're going to be doing most of your sales. And so I would look at it and say, okay, if it's on Amazon and I'm really just doing it as part of the brand registry, and that's the platform and that's where my sales were, I'd go with a place that is more straightforward, less expensive, and easier to enforce, which is oftentimes the US and sometimes EU. EU is a little bit more expensive as far as trademarks. So UK is not a bad example. EU is a lot more expensive than the US as far as cost wise. So I typically, if you're saying I just want to get on Amazon, I wouldn't go with the EU. On the other hand, if you're saying, no, I've got 20% of sales on Amazon, it doesn't make sense to go register in the US if 80% of your sales is in the UAE. That's not where you need protection. So that's kind of where I would start to balance it.
100% makes a lot of sense. Let's jump into what is required, because I know it's kind of the same thing for maybe it changes per country, but it is kind of the same thing. What is required if I were to want to register a trademark in the US, for example? What are the documentations that are required?
Yeah, I would say I'd step back, because documentations is going to be probably a bit of a boring, here's the documents you fill out, you go to this portal and you can do it, but it probably is, people probably don't want necessarily a how-to on the thing, but it's more of what are the standards, what you should be looking about, and kind of what you need to get prepared. So couple things is you're going to want to, one thing you're going to look at is whether or not you're protecting a logo, which is a design mark or a word mark. So when you look at trademarks, there are two different types of trademarks. One is called a word mark. Word mark is going to protect the use of a word. Doesn't matter the font or the color, it's just the use of that word. Design mark is going to be more of something with an aesthetic nature, a look and feel to it. It has a design to it. So if you to think of it as an example, Nike has a word mark on the word Nike. They also have a design mark on the Nike swoosh. One is a word, one is aesthetic, and both of them, they have trademarks on both. So one of the things you're going to look at is how are you representing your brand, whether it's on Amazon or anywhere else, are you doing it based primarily on the logo? Are you doing it primarily based on the word? Or is it really a combination of both and you want to protect both? The other thing you're going to look at is, so when you're filing a trademark, you have to, and it's pretty universal across all or almost all countries, is you also have to indicate the goods or the products or the services you're going to be using the trademark for.
Yeah.
So as an example, going back to the Nike example, there's different categories that you can file trademarks on for different products, and they call them classes.
Yeah.
Now, Nike has the classes for athletic wear, sports gear, and apparel. They don't have them for automobiles because they don't do anything with automobiles. And so when you file a trademark, the other main thing you're looking at is what categories or what classes should I be in, because you have, or when you file a trademark application, you indicate which ones you're doing. And so that one is one where you have to, and typically is, get an experienced attorney, knows what the classes are. It tends to make that a lot better, because if you get the wrong classes or you don't get coverage for the products or services you're offering, or you get the wrong ones, it can limit your ability to enforce your brand or otherwise have any value in the trademark. So that's one of the other things. One more thing, and then I'll take a pause, is the other thing you can look at with trademarks is there's a difference. You can file them two different ways. One is called intent to use, and the other one is called use in commerce. Intent to use is basically saying, hey, I haven't started using my brand yet. It's not out in the marketplace. I haven't started using it, but I'm building a company, getting ready to launch, and I intend to use it in the near-term future. And so I'm getting ready, and I'd like to set that aside to have that mark ready and already going when I start to use my business. Yeah. That's intent to use. I haven't started using it. I intend to use it. Other one is hey, I'm already out there. I'm already using the trademark. I already have the business built up, and I'm just continuing on. That's using commerce, meaning you've already started to use it. You're currently out there using it on your website or on Amazon or wherever it is. And so it doesn't necessarily matter which way you file, other than you have to indicate correctly which way you're doing it.
Perfect. Perfectly clear. Absolutely amazing. So how long does it take though?
So if you're to take in the US, I'll walk you through kind of the process. And this would be, let's say you're to go to Miller IP Law today, and you're to say, okay, I want to get started on a trademark. And so we say, okay, usually, and this is pretty or similar with a lot of law firms, but first thing you get set up as a client, there's a bit of onboarding. There is getting the information you need for the trademark application, kind of what we talked through. What is a trademark? Is it a design? Is it a word? Hey, are you using it yet? Or are you just going to use it? If you're using it, we need to have some evidence or what are called specimens that show that you're using it. Get all that information. That usually takes a couple weeks. So say on average, getting that information, getting the trademark application prepared takes a couple weeks. You review it. If it looks okay, then you get it filed, and then it gets put in a queue for examination at a trademark office. Trademark offices are going to, and depending on the country, so I'll take US just because that one's the one I know right offhand. Usually, once you put it in the queue, it takes about 6 months to get to that top of the queue before they start to examine it. They're going to then examine it, and they're really looking primarily for one standard. There's a couple other standards, but the main primary one that people typically hit into is going to be what's called confusingly similar. Basically, what confusingly similar means is there any other trademarks that are already out there prior to yours that already exist that are going to cause confusion to customers as to who is offering this product. In other words, if they see someone else's trademark out there and they see yours, they can say, oh, I think this is the same company, or I don't know, they're probably somehow related and they're probably the same business. There's confusion. On the other hand, they look and say, no, they're completely different companies. Nobody would ever think. Then you're fine. So they're going to go through the examiner, the trademark office is going to look at that. And they'll either one say, yep, it looks like it's trademarkable. There isn't any likelihood of confusion. And then it'll take about a month and a half to go through the rest of the process. There's a public opposition phase. Anybody can comment and basically say, I disagree with them and it's going to cause a problem for my brand. And it goes through about a month and a half, and then you've got a trademark. So Best case scenario, you're looking at about 7 to 7.5 months to get through in the US if you don't have any rejections. On the other hand, if you get a rejection and they come back saying, no, there's this other trademark over here that we think is kind of confusing to what you're doing, then they'll issue a rejection. If they issue a rejection, you have an opportunity to respond back. And they can be, hey, they're selling different products. They're not even related. Nobody'd ever think, or, hey, they have 2 words. We only have 1 word, or their spelling is completely different than ours. Any number of arguments, depending on the situation, that you can go back and argue as to why you aren't going to be confusingly similar. You can submit a response, see if you convince the examiner. You usually can have 1 or 2 go rounds, and then you're going to either convince the examiner and eventually they'll let it register as a trademark, or they're going to say, nope, we don't agree with you. And then you can appeal, which appeals are a lot of times, fairly expensive and they take a lot of time, or you're looking to probably rebrand. So usually if I were to say, average to get through the process, on the shorter end, you're 7.5 months. Longer end, you're 9 to 12 months, somewhere in there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Devin. Thanks for all the knowledge and info. If anybody wants to reach out to you, I'll leave all of your links in the description box of the video, but how can they reach you?
Yeah, so I'll give a couple ways. So if anybody wants to do a one-on-one strategy meeting where we can talk through what you're doing, give you a bit of run through a more one-on-one strategy for you, what it's going to cost and what you're going to want to do, they can go to strategymeeting.com. That links right to my calendar. They can set aside some time. It's a free 15-minute meeting where we can talk through, give you a bit of strategy and kind of do it. So strategymeeting.com is an easy way to connect up with me. On the other hand, if you just want to check out more about my firm, you want to learn about our flat fees, what our costs are, what our services are, we also have a ton of content. We have video, we have a podcast.
You do. You have a lot of content. Yeah.
But we have a ton of, and that's really set up to, we're trying to help however we can. So if nothing else, you can come away having learned some things. So if they want to go to the main website and check out all of our content, they can go to Law with Miller. So just Law with Miller IP Law, but lawwithmiller.com. And that one's the other one that they can reach out and just kind of find out the firm in general. So one-on-one strategy meeting, strategymeeting.com. Check out the law firm, lawwithmiller.com. They're welcome to check me out on LinkedIn as well. I'm always pretty active there. So if you go to Devin Miller or patent attorney, I usually pop up pretty easy.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Devin, and thanks for all of the valuable information. Make sure you leave a thumbs up to this video and you are subscribed to the channel. I'll see you in another video with more information. Bye.